Hello YouTube, Richard Lewis here again, and it's time for another video. But just before we get into it, I do want to apologise. As you can probably tell, I've got a little bit of a strained voice, and that's because I was out at DreamHack Valencia, and Fifth Lauren and Anders managed to infect everybody with what I can only assume is the fucking T-virus from Resident Evil. So we're all fucked, everyone that attended that event, and it was great. We all had a good time. But yeah, thanks Fifth Lauren and Anders, you kind of ruined it a bit for me. Anyway, the work must go on. There's stuff to do. There's stuff to talk about. So I'm going to try and slog through a video here. Apologies if it's hard to listen to or whatever, but hopefully we can all get through to the end. So what I want to talk about today is, while I was out in Valencia, which is why I didn't have time to address it sooner, Rock Paper Shotgun released an article called Globally Offensive, Let's Talk About Abuse in CSGO. On July the 17th by an author called Emily Richardson, and I got to say I was absolutely aghast at what this article was sort of intimating and effectively proposing, which we'll go into depth in a moment. Just to say, I mean, Rock Paper Shotgun, I used to love that publication. I really did. I used to read it. I think they used to put out some really good high quality stuff, and they had a very unique slant on gaming and gaming culture. And then when the Gamergate thing blew up, it was very hard to kind of support what they did, which was, you know, they were one of the websites that were guilty, if you like, of sort of dismissing gaming culture and saying we're all misogynists and that we don't really care about ethics in journalism, which certainly isn't my experience, and I say that as a journalist within the games industry, and it made it very hard to take them seriously after that. It felt like there was this underlying agenda that perhaps wasn't quite as apparent as something like a Kotaku, but was apparent anyway. You know, they used a line in their editorial about it, which they disabled comments on, because obviously there is no debate. You either believe what I'm about to read or you're wrong. They wrote an editorial called Video Games Are for Everybody, and right near the start it said, while there are certainly people who feel alienated from the games press, or who are, for whatever reason, unhappy about how the game press functions, many of the people who have pushed their ideas and opinions during this furor are people whose views are extreme and sexist. There are numerous individuals criticising the games press who are simultaneously harassing and abusing women. Many of these people have a history of attacking women. Their main intention is to attack women, not to improve practice across games. It's deeply ugly stuff and has little to do with ethics or games. It has to do with politics and hate. Now again, I that's not my experience. That's not what I see. You know, it's you can't sum up an entire movement based on the people that exist within its lunatic fringe, and I think it's irresponsible journalism to do so, frankly. So I was hugely disappointed when I read that. It's made me take everything else they publish with a pinch of salt. Quite a liberal pinch at that. So anyway, when I read this article, I mean, first of all, I don't know what the opposite of a trigger warning is, but there's key phrases that fucking trigger me, right? Trigger me to like, oh, here it comes. And if you ever put "Let's talk about" in a title, you're not in for a good time. It's not going to be an exercise in common sense. It's not actually a call to have a debate. It really is. Let me lecture you about how I think you should behave, and if you disagree, I'm going to label you some sort of internet harasser. That's basically what that fucking code means. So I checked out the author, Emily Richardson. I mean, the one thing I will say is she seems genuine in her love of esports. Her Twitter feed references Dota and Counter-Strike at length. And she, to her credit, did actually say that, you know, hey, if you're a dick in Counter-Strike, I'd love to interview you, which implies maybe she's going to go for some balance. But ultimately, large parts of her Twitter feed still buy into this whole misogyny myth about gamers. Now, I've seen what happens when girls and women, try to play games. Sometimes it can be ugly. Sometimes it isn't. I think most people would agree, actually, if you were to look at something that has a really diverse cross-section of players. Look at League of Legends. There's a lot of women and girls who play that game, and they're not harassed. They're not having a bad time. They are indeed being welcomed into the community. And the same for tolerance, which again, it seems ridiculous to even have to talk about tolerance towards trans people. But again, in my experience, I found it at an all-time high. This is true of all esports. In StarCraft, you have Scarlet, who is absolutely lauded to such a high degree for her play, and is, again, I'm sure has received some unsavory messages and harassment in the past, but the majority are not like that. So I found increasingly that misogyny doesn't mean anything when people say it anymore. It's one of those words that have become really overused to the point of redundancy, like toxic. It doesn't mean anything. It's divorced from its original context. Misogyny means the hate and dislike of women or girls. That is it. That's all it means. Now, criticizing a piece of work by a woman or girl, that's not misogyny. Right? Saying they don't have the right to produce that work because they're a woman or girl, that's getting closer to misogyny. So these words are being really taken out of context, and I'm very, very dubious about anyone that uses that word when we're ultimately talking about wanting to police other people's behavior. It's a very specific allegation. And actually, the people that are overusing it and are talking about it, or they're actually devaluing the people that actually do experience misogyny. And I'm thinking, and I've dealt with some stuff when I was working in as a trade union rep. Sexual discrimination in the workplace, that kind of thing. An argument on Twitter is not akin to that. And I alarm bells ring in my head whenever I see anybody overuse that word. Because in my experience of what I've observed, instances of true misogyny are very limited when it comes to gaming, actually. Now, anyway, on to the article, which, opening couple of paragraphs, we get the T word in there, the big toxic, which just, again, I've talked about it in other videos, but again, just so if you're new to my YouTube channel, here's just basically the baseline of what it is. It was a word that was really introduced by Riot Games when they made League of Legends. Had a very good description, actually, when they first used it, and that is that if you go into a game and you're in a bad mood and you act like an asshole, right, you make 4 other people, maybe even more, you make those other people feel negative. And they go and they act like an asshole. And they fuck up other people's games. And it spreads out. It spreads out like a toxic substance. And it affects everybody. That is why the word within that context is great. It's actually a really evocative description of what's going on. It's very, very profound, actually. So when people use it to be like, oh, you're toxic. Why? You said something I don't like. No, that isn't what it means. That is, unless, are you going to be an asshole now? No, you're lecturing me. Okay, right, cool. So it's not toxic. I'll stop using it. But anyway, so you can watch some of my other vids about that. I won't harp on about it. I do that too much anyway. But then Emily goes on to say, to basically laud Riot's fucking tribunal and all the research into abuse, which I think is, for most actual people who care about gaming, it's probably their least attractive component of the company. It's the least attractive thing they do. They made a very accessible MOBA. They had lots of features that were very good at encouraging the community to grow, but that, I think, out of all the people I speak to, actually turns people off. And even then, the people who seem to like it are caught up in the moment. Like, they've had that bad game, and they're like, oh, ban these assholes, they're toxic, they're horrible, let's take away their right to play a game. And then when they actually just calm the fuck down and realise it's one game and it isn't actually that big a deal, it's just a few ephemeral words on the internet, they're like, oh, yeah, fuck, yeah. Yeah. And then generally those same people, when they act like an asshole, they're the ones who come forward and go, I didn't do anything wrong. Or, oh, I only went AFK because he insulted me. Yeah, but you fucked the whole game up for everybody. Oh, yeah, right, okay. So it's you know, the pro-tribunal people, the pro-anti-toxicity fucking lobby, like, just fuck them, they're idiots. So anyway, she says in her article, to begin with, I decided to simply ask, what compels you to flame or abuse others? I brought this question directly to players in-game, in the CSGO subreddit, and on Twitter. Perhaps I thought there's nobody better to answer than those who flame themselves. First, I tried asking during matches. I'm one of those people who usually only plays in stacks of 4 or 5 to avoid abusive teammates. Especially when, as a woman, I attract a good amount of bullshit. Naturally, this venture was a terrifying foray into the minds of my abusers. Right, couple of things here. First of all, right, isn't it great that Counter-Strike affords you the option to play in stacks of 4 and 5, so you can play with people that are all of a like-minded, disposition. You can play with only friends. You do not need to be exposed to any negative teammates at all. You don't need to be, right? Isn't that amazing? Because in League, you don't have that. So isn't that great? I would say, anybody who ever says, well, I usually play in stacks with my friends, there's something kind of wrong with that, because for me, one of the great things about the internet, one of the great things about online gaming, is that you meet new people. You are exposed to people from different countries, different cultures, different levels of skill, you name it. It's diversity. Right? Now, you have a limited period of time with each other. Okay? Now, that period of time can be so profoundly good. You add them on Steam or whatever chat program it is. You start playing together regularly, and a friendship blossoms. Right? So why would you want to deny yourself one of the best things about online gaming? And I say that, right? I'm a grown man. I've got friends that I met 10 years ago when I first started playing Counter-Strike, and they're real friends. They're good friends, you know? Yeah, all right, maybe we're not exchanging Christmas cards or, I don't know, whatever normal people do. But we meet up, you know, every now and then. Sometimes it's months, sometimes it's years. But we always keep in touch. We always catch up on what each other are doing, where our lives have gone since those, you know, ridiculous early days. A decade's a long time to know anybody. But I'm proud to call those people my friends. I met them through Counter-Strike. I don't give a fuck if anyone says that that's sad or pathetic. You know, these are good people. And if I never played a game, I would never have met them. Okay? It's more common that you're going to meet an asshole or someone you're completely indifferent to. But that's just real life in general, right? How often do you make a connection with someone? You know? When you're riding on the bus, you're not looking around thinking, fucking hell, I'm going to quickly talk to all of these people and ask them why they're not making eye contact with me or why we can't have a conversation. Why that fucker won't turn his mobile phone off playing that shit tinny music. You don't do that. You just, it's just a bus. I'm only on it for 30 minutes to get to work. I'll just, you know, and that's it. You just go about your life, right? So I'm highly dubious of anyone that says, I actually spend most of my time shielding myself away from human experiences. Now let me talk about human experience. Fuck you. You're not qualified. End of story. If you want to live your life in a hugbox, don't start fucking talking about, you know, what happens when you step outside of it. Because it's different. You've created an artificial environment for yourself. Right, anyway. The other thing. This venture was a terrifying foray into the minds of... I mean, fucking hell, man. Come on, Emily. You're better than this, yeah? Terrifying. Terrifying. Right? You want to talk about terrifying? I just watched on the front page of Reddit the other day a surfer getting attacked by a shark. That's terrifying. This is not terrifying, alright? And I'm going to qualify that, right? This is what she's describing as a terrifying foray into the minds of my abusers. Hello, I said, tentatively joining a casual game at first. I was met with a volley of responses in a Slavic language. I mean, nice of you not to be able to identify it, or, you know, we're just saying Slavic, we're not even talking about specific. Yeah, okay, cool. That's really open-minded. I soon realized there were several people talking to each other loudly, maybe even angrily. So you're not even sure, okay? So you can't even identify the language, and yet you're going to try and guess from the intonation of what they were saying, their mindset, right? Ridiculous, because different cultures talk to each other in different ways. I used to live with Greek people when I went to university, right? They're very expressive. They've got very specific phrases for everything. And sometimes I'll be looking over thinking, are these people having an argument? They're not having an argument. It's just another fucking day at the office for them. That's just how they talk to each other. One of the things I fucking hate, and I'm going to make a video about this just specifically, is the way that, right, and you would think anyone of a social justice warrior mindset would be super attuned to this, but they're not. They're actually, ironically, they're not. They don't have an appreciation for other cultures and how they do things globally. They just don't. They've got their white, middle to upper class, Western values, primarily American values, and they just want to fucking rubber stamp everything with them as either defective, if it doesn't conform, or, you know, or approved. Yeah, I approve of this message because it fits in with my ideals. That's one of the most disgusting and repugnant ways to be. That's why when you go abroad, that's why fucking people who live in foreign countries don't like us and eye us with suspicion, because they're sick of the way we talk about their culture and the way they behave whenever it's outside. You know, like we've got a right to judge them for things they've been brought up with as completely normal. So, right, yeah. I politely asked if they spoke any English. That in itself could be offensive. Sounds like they were a pre-made. You know those like 4 and 5 groups that you like to play in, Emily? They're probably one of them. Why should they have to talk English? Why should they? For you? For your benefit? Why? You know? I don't know. Okay, but anyway. She asks them if they speak any English. Some people do take this as offensive. Because again, it comes down to this idea of linguistic imperialism. You speak our language, right? Well, no. Okay? In that situation, you're the minority. Fuck you, they said with a heavy accent. Keep in mind, she described this as terrifying. Fuck you, they said with a heavy accent. That's great, thanks, she replies. Fuck you, they said again. Yep, I got that. Fuck you. Okay, I said, keep arguing, that's good. Then came more of the unfamiliar language. I'm sorry, what was that? He say, you gay, one of them replied. Great. I didn't get anything else out of them. I learned absolutely nothing about anything. I tried to get in competitive games, but the result was more or less the same. Someone would be a jerk, they'd scream at their teammates, and I'd carefully and honestly ask them to explain their logic. There'd be a long contemplative silence and nothing else. If I was lucky, I might get another fuck you. Notably, most of the abuse stopped immediately after I'd asked for their reasoning. Interesting. Okay, so, a few things to note here. I've played Counter-Strike for like 10 years, and I've played with some assholes. Real assholes. I've played in games where I've been, you know, fucking team killed constantly, team flashed. Like, some guys just got pissed off. Guys are trolling. Guys are hacking against you. Guys on the mic spamming fucking all sorts of shit. Porn sprays, when there were sprays in the game. Like, I mean, that doesn't bother me. I guess it would trigger some people. People can be jerks, right? But out of all of the experiences I've had, that does not sound like an authentic experience to me in Counter-Strike whatsoever. Because if you say to somebody, hey, what's up? And they go, fuck you. And then you go, that's great, thanks. No one's going to follow it up with fuck you over and over and over again. Not unless that's the only English phrase they know. And in which case, you know, can't they be excused? They're just trying to tell you they don't want to talk to you. I mean, that's another key thing here. We're talking about other people ruining other people's enjoyment. They want to play a game of Counter-Strike with their friends. You're interviewing them, unsolicited, for a fucking article that you're writing. Fuck that, you know. If I was playing a game and someone was like, oh, can I just ask you a question? You know when you kicked off that last round, yeah? Can you tell me why you did that? I'd be like, fuck you. I'm trying to concentrate on a game, or, you know, I want to play a game. But anyway, still don't think that's an authentic Counter-Strike experience. The bit where he just goes, he say you gay, like, fucking hell, like, you know? People will flame you. Here's the thing. When you go on, you're talking about, oh, they can't explain the reasoning. Here's the reasoning, alright? Games are used for a variety of reasons. And some people really, really want to win, alright? And some people play for fun. And I'm guessing Emily falls into that latter category. Now, one of the biggest conflicts that ever happen in competitive online games is when the super tryhard and the don't give a fuck because it's fun, meat. Boom. It's always oil and water. It cannot mix. You know, there's nothing. I'm one of the competitive guys, right? So I'm one of the people who, if you fucking say to me, "Hey man, it's just a game," when you're playing bad, I will fucking go in on you because you're wasting my time, right? By not trying, by not giving a fuck. I believe you are wasting my time. Now that doesn't mean that I'm right. Doesn't mean that it's rational. But some people have the competitive element inside them and others don't. Some people can play games casually, have fun. Others don't want to do that. Now what I would say is Valve have basically signposted, right, two very distinct modes. And this is true at every game. It's the same with League. You've got non-competitive and competitive. Now my argument would be, if your attitude is, hey, I only play for fun, do not go into the competitive mode. You will meet people who aren't there for fun. You will meet people who are there to win. And if you cost them a win by doing something stupid, they are going to tell you that they think you're fucking dirt. It's just that simple. It's like I've always said. Imagine that, I don't know, you played for a pub team, right? Football, okay? So you play football. You're down there every Sunday for the dog and duck, right? But you go to training on Tuesday. You go to training on Thursday. You're there bright and early on Sunday. You're doing laps. You're getting warmed up, yeah? And then some cunt gets out of his car. He wasn't there on Tuesday. He wasn't there on Thursday. But you're short on numbers. He's in the team. He's smoking a fag while you're doing your warm-up, right? I should say cigarette in case anybody accuses me of being homophobic. So he's having a smoke. And he goes straight into the game. 5 minutes in, he's out of breath, he's coughing up phlegm, and he's late for every tackle, he can't pass the ball. Guess what happens? Even if I'm playing with that guy every Sunday, I'm telling that guy, you're a fucking piece of shit. When we lose the game, I'm telling him that. Because he's wasted my time, he's wasted the time of all the people who were dedicated, who wanted to win. That's just how it is. Now, I don't know why people insist that we've got our own little fun modes, we've got sandbox modes, but we shouldn't be denied competitive modes. Even though we're not competitive people, even though we don't care about the competition, we're going to come into your mode and you've got to bow down to us. You, the competitive gamer, have to bow down to us and basically tolerate us making you have a bad time. The thing you think is the most important thing isn't the same as us, but we don't like that, so fuck you. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's egregious, and I'm amazed that actually more people don't make that point when they're issuing a rebuttal about this kind of thing. So, next paragraph, another pet peeve. Next, I went to Reddit. I mean, hotbed of reasonable discussion right there. One user was adamant that the block and report system had already fixed the issue, but I just can't bring myself to agree. Okay, well, let's find out why. Blocking is obviously the best tool for getting rid of harassers. Okay, so you do agree. It does fix the problem, actually. But in a game that depends so highly on communication, it just sucks to have to block somebody. I've got news for you. Right? If you've got somebody you can't get along with and you can't have a meaningful conversation with, even if it's all their fault, just ignoring them is the best thing you can do. Because especially in a game like Counter-Strike, where you have that, you could 1v5 people. If if you concentrate, if you think, if you can bring your own excellence out of you, doesn't matter. Mute that guy, fuck that guy. The one call he's going to make all game anyway, anything that's even vaguely productive, you can do enough individually to win without any communication from that person. It's as simple as that. So that is just, again, that shows a complete lack of understanding of Counter-Strike for me, because, I had it just the other day. I'm playing, I do stream from time to time, playing a game. There was some Scottish guy who, he was absolutely terrible. We were carrying the game for him, and he was just making terrible calls. And I was just like, look, for fuck's sake, dude, like, please, just, can you think about what you're calling? One of those guys, he sees one person, they're all B, they're coming, panics, like he's been flashbanged once. right? And then you go to rotate to help him out, and you get shot by the fucking 3 cunts that are riding around the corner, because they're not all B. He just panicked. So I called him out about that, right? And he wouldn't shut the fuck up. Wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. About, you're Welsh, you're a fucking sheep shagger, you should kill yourself, all of this. Mute. We win the game 16-14 with me carrying. That's life, right? That's how you do it. If I'd stayed and listened to that shit, just listen to his voice, no way are we winning that game. No fucking way. If I start arguing back with him, no way are we winning that game. Mute, concentrate, carry the fucking game. So, the idea that communication is the fucking be-all and end-all of Counter-Strike, especially in matchmaking, absurd, ridiculous. And it doesn't stop them abusing you in the first place, she continues. If someone throws one of those incredibly original gendered insults at me, no matter how fast I block and report them, I'm still really annoyed about it. That's about you. That's about you, I'm afraid. That's your lack of a skin. You need to be able. Okay, so again, have you ever just walked around in real life? You ever just gone into town where you live, you walk around the shops and you just do your thing? You ever had someone be rude to you? I have. It's happened to me. I live in a big city in the UK, right? And when I'm out and about, sometimes you get some of them are crazy people, some of them aren't, some of them are just having a bad day. Someone might bump into you, start shouting at you. Someone might tell you to fuck off. Someone might be spoiling for a fight, drunk, trying to antagonize you. What do? What's the adult response in that situation? First of all, you don't just, why are you saying this to me? Why are you doing it? You definitely don't do that. Second of all, you don't think, I must find out more about this individual because there must be some form of punishment. They must be held accountable for making me feel mildly uncomfortable for a few minutes out of my life. Who does that? Who thinks like that? You don't. Here's what adults do, right? You think, that guy's a fucking asshole. You ignore them, you walk away, you get on with your day. That's how you deal with assholes in real life. Why on the fucking internet do we want to dedicate all of these systems to trying to stop assholes? Especially when it's all subjective anyway. Ridiculous. So, no, you insulted me once, and even though I get to block you after, it's not enough for me. Fuck off. When I asked people outside of the game why they flame, the response was usually the same. It's either some kind of retaliation against other people flaming them, or frustration with people not playing the game properly. No one is willing to admit that they flame or abuse before anyone else has said or done anything negative, apart from one Reddit user who declared, honestly, I hate people, and it's fun to troll/bait. Now we're starting to get to the crux of something that's akin to truth. I just talked about it. How you're wasting my time if you're not competitive, if you don't want to try out in my games. That's really going to piss me off. That's really going to anger me, which isn't to say it's right, but it's just how I feel, and I know lots of people feel the same way. So she's saying there that no one. The response is always it's a retaliation against other people flaming them, or frustration with people not playing the game properly. That probably is true. Like, in your perception, if somebody is playing the game badly or making mistakes or does something stupid, it is immensely frustrating. It is immensely frustrating. And of course, one of the things that Counter-Strike has, when you're dead, you can watch all your teammates and everything they do. So, ultimately, you do it through the first-person view. So, ultimately, at that point, you are in their shoes, literally. The only thing is you don't control them, but you have to watch it. So, your cognitive processes of how you would play that situation, they're all happening. And you'll be like, you fucked that up, you made that mistake, blah, blah, blah. And of course, everyone's the best player in the world when they're dead, right? Because the pressure's off. All the other processes that you need to be doing, thinking about movement, listening to sound, looking at a mini-map, blah, blah, all of that stops. You don't have, well, not all of that, but you take away a lot of it, and all you're doing is looking at what somebody else is doing. So, yeah, that is probably the cause of most of the flame. I know in my case, I only get frustrated in game when people are doing like ridiculously stupid things. You know, I might be wrong to do it, but that's what gets me upset. That's what annoys me. So I don't even consider that like, oh, they're lying, there's some secret. It's probably true. And yeah, here's another thing that these fucking people who want to sanitize games never talk about. Let's say I'm I don't know, father of 3 who works a fucking shit job to pay for my kids. I'm immensely miserable. My life sucks. And the wife and the kids, they're not around like for one evening a week. One evening a week. Right? And I have to go to work, and I have to be nice to my boss, otherwise I get fired. Can't show my temper on the kids, that will make me irresponsible. You know, definitely don't want to take it out on the wife. Don't really get to see my mates as much. When we do, all we do is really moan about our problems. Where do I get it? Just blow off a bit of steam. Those few hours a week I get, maybe I want to blow off some steam in an online game. People do it. People use online games to cathartically express negativity sometimes. It happens, right? It's probably not a well-documented phenomenon because no one's interested in explaining the methodology, the reasons behind an asshole. We just want to label them assholes. Now, you know, I've talked to people after games where people have gone fucking ham and been pricks and that. Generally, when you do, you find another human being. Once the membrane of assholeness has been, you know, punctured, and you get to the person on the other side, you generally realise that, oh, wow, yeah, fuck, he's alright, mate, he's having a bad day, like, no wonder. I remember I played a game, I've still got the video somewhere, I've never uploaded it, but I played a game with a guy who, he just split up with his long-term girlfriend. He was drunk as shit, and I was like, oh, here we go, mate, here we go, this game's fucked. Player called Jaeger, he was, and I was like, oh, this is going to be awful. And he was missing shots, and we were losing rounds, and we were really behind. And he was honest. He was like, oh, I'm playing like shit. I'm really drunk. My girlfriend just left me. And I thought, you know what? Instead of being angry at him because he's been so honest, I'm going to try and just encourage him and have fun. And fuck it. It's one game. It's one game. Who cares? So this guy, technically, by my definitions, was being an asshole. But he had a good reason for it. I processed that reason. Thought, alright, it's not his fault that he's ruining my gaming experience. Let's try and be nice. And I streamed it, people watching it on stream. And we were encouraging him. He was buying a scout every round, drunk off his ass, going for YOLO scopes. And we got a draw. We actually drew the fucking game. Ridiculously. And he was like super happy that, like, instead of just all the other people who've been whining at him all day for being an asshole, someone just took 5 minutes to just be like, yeah, do you know what? Fuck it. All right, let's just have a laugh. Even though it goes against everything at the core of my being, I actually tried to do a bit of empathy with an asshole, with someone that was doing something I didn't approve of. And it was actually a positive experience for me and a positive experience for them. Just saying. So, anyway, I read the rest of the article. It goes on to basically talk about some psychological studies, some of which are a little bit out of context in my opinion, but whatever. And then, there's some other stuff like, this is a very good question. To what degree do language barriers add fuel to the flames? She asked, and she goes, honestly, I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to start measuring it. But how cultural differences affect us and how we give and take offence is part of figuring out why the flame is flaming. No. Got it all wrong. You got it all mixed up. What you should be doing is, with all of those cultural differences and how they affect us and how we give and take offence, why don't you figure out why you're offended? Wouldn't that be better? Because there's this massive contradiction, right, when it comes to this. Everybody tells you as a player, don't focus on the mistakes of others, only focus on yourself, because that's all you can control. And that's what we say when we talk about mechanics and how to play the game and blah, blah, blah. When it comes to offense and getting upset, we focus on the other person and we say, oh, well, yeah, but you're being an asshole. You're being an asshole. And that's got to change. No, it's not me. It's not me. It's never me. So, two completely opposing viewpoints, and the fact remains, you can't control what other people do. You can only control the way it affects you. So, while it might not be cool, and some people might go too far, you have got the tools at your disposal to be able to just shut them down. And all the whining about and all the let's talk about it, it ain't going to change human nature. What made me more terrified, right, than the article itself, if we're talking about terrified, again, this for me is a legitimate terror. Where was it? One of the users said something absolutely insane. Oh, here it is. Hobbs. And I'm aghast when I read this. I was aghast. So you guys need to be prepared. It was, the problem stems from the lack of consequences in these games for what would be arrestable real-world conduct. You can be a jerk, and broadly speaking, the damage to you is that someone mutes you. As you're anonymous, that's about all that's prone to happen. If you're abusive and threatening in the real world, you can get arrested for the same kind of conduct. It's the internet isn't an acceptable excuse any longer in my eyes. If you behave like a jackass and you conduct yourself in a manner that would get you put in a cell for threatening behaviour in the UK, pretty sure calling someone a fucking scrub wouldn't do that, then so should the same long arm of the law apply online, without exception. In the long term, governments are going to move towards this solution and force everyone to sign up with verifiable metrics, which mean that your conduct, no matter what you do, where you do it, will be traceable, and if someone issues a formal complaint, it'll get tracked back to you and could have real-world repercussions. I want you to think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about a fucking game of Counter-Strike. This guy's talking about Orwell and Big fucking Brother, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, this is what should happen. You flame me in matchmaking, an email through a Valve report system goes to my employer. I go into work Monday morning. Richard, it says here that you called someone a shit cunt online. Well, we have strict policy about shit cuntery, and you know, come the fuck on, man. Like, and this guy wants this. This guy wants that. Like, how fucked in the head do you have to be to want that? He goes, I've always been a great advocate of having a switch which for a single 60-minute window, just for that long, removes all display names and replaces them with real names and hard links back to a page with all of their posts, comments and discussion made on the internet in a searchable format. For those 60 minutes, you'll be able to hear a pin drop, as everyone who normally acts as if the law doesn't apply would suddenly find that they'd be very cruelly exposed to reality. It'll be an interesting thought exercise. And if you go through the comments, such is the nature of the online community these days, and the way society in general is heading, that we have to effectively tailor all of our behaviours to ultimately act, to ultimately be kind of restricted to act as some sort of cushion for the weak, for the people that we just cannot tolerate even disagreements, mild disagreements. Understand, I'm not talking about abuse and harassment. I'm not talking about people finding out where you live and giving you death threats, something I've gone through. These people are talking about flaming you in a game and how it should have real life repercussions. It's fucking crazy. That's where we're headed. So definitely head on over to Rock Paper Shotgun to read that. Hopefully you'll be as fucking horrified as I was. And all I can say is I just hope that we don't get the same thing that we've got in, Riot Games and all of this, like, social justice warrior approved gaming. I don't want that. It's like government approved rock and roll. I don't want that. It sucks. It's shit. It's soulless. I don't want you to sanitize my internet experience. Especially when, I say, you just got here. That's the worst thing about it. The people that want to change it to be how they want it to be, they're fucking new to it. So it's like if you went to a party, right? You were there for 10 minutes, you barely knew anyone, and you got up and you were like, look, right, I know everyone's having a good time, yeah, but this music is fucking shit. And I've got these Gregorian chants that I want to put on, and if you don't let me put it on, then I'm going to use all of my experience and my ties at the council and all my police friends to basically just get this party shut down, yeah? So, Gregorian chants, is that alright? Yeah, we all dancing to that now? Yeah, awesome, okay, great. Fuck that, man. Counter-Strike's been fine for all of this time. There's never been a problem with the Flame. And I've never heard anyone say to me, hey, Richard, you know what? You know what we really need to fix in Counter-Strike? All this online abuse, man. No one's ever said that to me. Why is that? It's not a fucking problem unless you make it one. And as we've seen time and time again from the media, they want to make it one. Do not be fooled. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. I'll catch you on the next video, hopefully with my voice back.